Pipe Network presents.
Welcome to Hintang Nights Podcast, ang inyong midnight thoughts na walang pinipiling oras, ang long-distance friend mo na mahilig mag-advise, at ang go-to hub mo kapag gusto mo lang ng maingay sa buhay. This podcast is hosted by yours truly, Jelly!
For the latest news sa pop culture at social media bardagulan, samahan niyo kami. Ako si Marga.
Ako naman si Bullet sa pinakamasayang comedy current affairs podcast sa balat ng Spotify, Apple Podcast at Google Podcasts.
Mad in Manila. Oh,
O, dalawang chismosa na lang, lalarga na!
Ay, manong kami!
Welcome to your unfiltered Tagalog Wrestling Podcast. This is the LTG Show Podcast. Hey, let's do this! You're listening to your unfiltered Tagalog Wrestling Podcast, and this is the MTG Show Podcast, a wrestling podcast. And before we start this week's episode, one of the biggest episodes here in the podcast, today is episode number 55. One of the biggest episodes, no doubt about it. Kasi we're going to do a takeover review rather. And then we're going to do a Hell in a Cell predictions as well. Kasi mag-take place na yung Hell in a Cell sa Monday, Manila time. So we have to do another episode next week focused on Hell in a Cell. And also, we don't have 5 takes this week. Instead, mag-take place siya next week. So, Yun lang ang mga public advisory natin for this week. Mamaya may announce pa akong isa kasi medyo importante yun. Gagamitin natin yun starting next week din. Oo, next week din. Gagamitin natin yung mamaya. I-announce ko siya before we end this week's pod. Eto, so for this week's podcast, we're going to talk about TakeOver in Your House 2021. And then we're going to talk about Hell in a Cell this Monday, Manila time. Of course, weekend. And, of course, mag-shadow tayo ng konti sa mga nangyari last Tuesday sa NXT. Kasi that's one of the biggest blockbusters, knockers this week on NXT. So, definitely, kailangan natin bigyan ng spot itong segment na to, itong show na to. Raw, no. Hindi natin kailangan bigyan ng oras. SmackDown weekend, pag gusto ko. Hindi, ito kasing ideya ko eh. Hindi ako magre-review ng Raw or SmackDown hanggat hindi nag-i-improve yung mga stories nila. Kasi, ang gusto ko lang naman bigyan ng punto sa Raw this week is Eva Marie. Yun lang ang gusto ko bigyan ng point dito. The rest, meh. And then SmackDown, on the other hand, I want to praise what the hell Roman did to Rey and Dominic Mysterio. That's a good shit. Yun lang ang gusto kong i-upload mamaya. I-upload natin, i-explain natin kung bakit ito yung mga napili kong i-mention dito sa podcast episode na to. So before we start this episode, syempre kahit tapos na po ang 566 at yung payday sale, pwede nyo pa rin gamitin yung link ko sa Shopee sa 77 or habang nag-aantay pa kayo ng 77, you can use my link tinyurl.com/ShopeeXMTG show. Again, that's tinyurl.com/ShopeeXMTG show. And wala naman sisingilin yan sa inyo. Use my links, add to cart, and then makasiguro naman kayo darating yun sa mga bahay nyo, and then nakatulong pa kayo here in the podcast, of course. And yun lang naman sa akin. Also nga pala, before we start, may announcement kasi si Spotify earlier in the week na they're going to have a counterpart sa ano ba dito? Sa Clubhouse. That's the Green Room. Green Room. Para siyang Clubhouse. Bago pa lang siya. We're going to utilize the shit soon. Sabihan namin kayo kung kailan. Pero we're going to utilize that thing anytime soon. And we're going to do the review of Hell in a Cell there. Baka magkaintindihan tayong makakagawa tayo ng review. But we're going to use that platform for future shows, I guess. Pag magkakaroon tayo ng live shows. Pero hindi yung recording, hindi. So, yun lang sa akin. Follow nyo na lang yung aking Green Room sa Spotify at the MTG Show. If you figure out ko pa kung pwede palitan yung pangalan, kasi gusto ko palitan yung pangalan nun. So yeah, let's start reviewing NXT TakeOver in your house. Kasi kung hindi natin bibigyan to ng punto, walang saysay yung sumunod na NXT show. So, let's start with this NXT TakeOver in your house. So, nagkaroon nga ng winner-take-all 6-man tag team match for the North and Tag Team Championships, North American and the Tag Team titles. So, Bronson Reed and MSK defeated Legado, which is, sabi ko nga, gusto ko manalo Legado, pero feeling ko mananalo dito yung team ng MSK. Kasi wala pa namang sense para madrop agad yung belts nila, especially ni Bronson Reed. Yun ang isa sa mga malaking dahilan kaya di mo na nila binigay sa Legado. Pero feeling ko Legado will win the championship sooner than later. Hindi ko lang pwede sabihin na today or within next week or within the American Bash. No. Pero this match alone, I think ito yung isa sa mga nagustuhan kong matches sa TakeOver na to. I'm not saying na pangit masyado, but ito yung isa sa mga nagustuhan ko on this pay-per-view. My opinion. I'm not saying na, ito sabihin ko sa inyo, the match is pretty, hindi siya cliched match, unlike what you expect on a opposition's show. You know what I mean? Mas gusto ko yung nangyari dito na sobrang fun. Sobrang fun lang. I'm not saying na worst. I'm not saying it's bad. Sobrang fun lang nito. I swear. Hindi siya pangit. Sobrang fun. Hindi mo siya pwedeng sabihin na match of the night. You can't say na pangit nito. Hindi mo pwedeng sabihin na ganun eh. Kasi iba ang pangit. Iba yung pangit dun eh. Pero, sige, I'm going to give it a chance din. Kasi napanood ko rin yan. Maganda naman nangyaring matchup. Although, parang nabibit din ako. Kasi, maikli nga yung runtime ng TakeOver. Kumpara last year. Which is medyo, I like the shorter pay-per-views. But, the matches, feeling ko, dapat hindi ganun kaikli. Sobrang ikli kasi nito. So, in the end, wala akong bad reactions about Bronson and MSK winning the match. But however, I feel na Legado will win the championship in the future. Definitely. Both titles. And then let's move on to Xia Li and Mercedes Martinez. To be honest, di ko na napanood tong laban na to. Pinanood ko na lang siya ng replay. But I can say na binibuild pa rin nila si Xia Li for a picture versus it's either Raquel or Dakota Kai na future kasi parang feeling ko binibuild pa rin siya. Tsaka yung stable nila. I'm not saying na masama yung build up nila. But pwedeng mag-improve to in the future shows, I guess. Pero natuwa rin ako. I'm glad na tumayo na yung isang member ng Tiansha. Si Mei Ying. Inatake niya si Mercedes Martinez, and that means hindi pa tapos yung feud. I'm glad na hindi nila tinapos doon lang yung feud na yon, kahit naikli lang yon. I'm glad na hindi nila tinapos yon agad-agad. Yeah. So yun lang sa akin. I'm not saying that it's bad. And then we got LA Knight versus Cameron Grimes for the $1 Million Championship contested in a ladder match. Ito, meron akong 2 punto dito. Number 1, what's the sense of LA Knight winning the championship? I'm not saying na hindi ko i-discount na heel si LA Knight kasi it makes sense. LA Knight is a heel and he's supposed to siya yung kukuha ng hit from the fans pag inatake yung isang face, which is si Cameron Grimes. It makes sense after all na LA Knight wins match. But the second question is, for what? Ano yung stake niya dito? Ano yung parang sense niya winning the $1 Million Championship? Si Cameron Grimes, for sure, may sense pag siya yung nanalo. Kasi he has the gimmick na yung $1 Million parody gimmick na eh. And he called himself the richest man in NXT. So, him winning the $1 Million Championship, it's either it doesn't make sense at all or hindi ko maisip kung may sense ba na nanalo siya ng championship. But I don't think na it makes sense at all. Sige. Pero itong match na to, match-wise, it's a good match, it's a fun match. Like what I said, almost everything in this TakeOver card is good to watch, fun to watch. If you meron kang WWE Network, hindi mo re-regret na pinanood mo to ng buo sa isang sitting lang. And then, yung mga spots naman dito sa match na to, $1 Million Championship, hindi siya yung basic lang eh. It's not a basic match, I know. Pero definitely, nakikita ko pa din yung future ni Cameron Grimes as a losing bitch motherfucker. Ganun yung parang book sa kanya since he arrived in NXT, losing bitch motherfucker. And he didn't win a TakeOver match, I'm not sure. Pero hindi pa ata siya nananalo ng isang TakeOver match since he debuted in NXT. Ewan ko correct me if I'm wrong. Pero feeling ko hindi pa siya nananalo ng match since then sa isang TakeOver. And medyo malungkot ako dahil pero sige, LA Knight deserves the win, but where? Ano sana yung sense? Asan yung sense na nanalo siya doon sa $1 Million Championship match ito? Wala akong nakikita na sense. So let's move on. So we got Raquel Gonzalez versus Dakota Kai. Raquel Gonzalez with Dakota Kai versus Ember Moon for the NXT Women Championship. I think this match is one of the best matches ni Dakota tuloy. Ni Ember Moon since she returned in NXT. Pero, syempre, gusto ko props din kay Raquel, one of the biggest, baddest son of a bitch in NXT history. And I think she deserves that moment. She deserves to win that match, and I think, ito ba yung first defense niya? I think yes, first. I guess, ito yata yung first defense niya on a pay-per-view, I guess. But, tanggap ko na nanalo siya dun. A good match is a fun match to watch. Like what I said, the whole pay-per-view is fun to watch indeed. Pero, let's move on to our main event this week on TakeOver in your house. So, that's Karrion Kross Kyle O'Reilly, Adam Cole, Johnny Gargano, Joe King, and Pete Dunne for the NXT Championship. Itong match na to, personal opinion ko lang. Sobrang laki o sobrang lawak ng ini-imagine ko during this match. Kasi ang daming daming styles na nangyari, styles clash niya. Daming nangyaring styles dito sa match na to. And for me, that's really good. Malaking bagay yun sa match na to na lahat ng sinama nila dito sa main event na to is magkakaiba na styles. Hindi siya yung isang style lang na super kick, bang, talon, no. Ito, alam mo na magkakaiba talaga yung styles nila. And dumidepende na lang tayo sa kung ano yung preference at sa kung ano yung trend. Ako kasi hindi. Hindi ako ganun. That's why I gave Finn Balor and Kyle O'Reilly matches 5+ may get because of its wrestling essence. Mamaya i-explain ko yung score ko mamaya on this one. But I think this match is a very good styles clash match. One of the best matches in TakeOver this year. I'm not saying of all time, of course. Kasi hindi naman. Pero Cross winning the match makes sense to me. Hindi siya masama. Hindi rin siya pinahina. Parang mas lumakas pa siya because of this story. So yeah. Yun lang sa akin. Yun lang ang thoughts ko about the match. And then, in the end of the TakeOver, nakita natin na lumabas si William Regal from his office and sinabi niya, ito na yung summary, it's time for a change. So, speaking of change, mag-move on na tayo sa NXT na nangyari noong Tuesday nga. So, NXT this week is a pretty good NXT. Parang anong nangyari kasi dito is may dapat papalit kay Regal. So, anong nangyari is nag-promo si Regal, in-address niya yung crowd na parang hindi na siya capable sa role as a general manager pero lumabas si Karrion Kross. Nag-demand siya na sabihin na mag-step down na siya and ibigay kay Kross yung role niya as the GM. Pero, hindi siya nag-respond si Regal and lumabas nga si Samoa Joe. Hindi naman siya sobrang lakas na pop. Pero but still, sa pop. And then, nag-promo na nga si Joe. And sinabi rin ni Regal na parang gusto ni Regal na ibigay yung role kay si Joe. And si Joe tumanggi. He refused to be the general manager. Pero instead, who will make sure na respetuhin ng lahat si Regal. Gusto niyang makasiguro na mabigyan siya ng respect, na necessary respect para sa lahat or from everyone. And then, nag-challenge din, nagbago yung ihip ng hangin na sinabi nga ni Regal na magiging enforcer siya but in 2 conditions. Number 1, hindi siya pwede mag-compete. I-accept that. Number 2, hindi siya pwedeng umatake sa kahit sino man unless provoked. That's the keyword. Unless provoked. And the way they said that term, yun talaga ang keyword for Joe to strike on everyone. I thought this night is gonna be a sleep night for NXT because pinatulog niya si Adam Cole. Mamaya explain ko paano niya pinatulog. And yung pag-roast niya kay Johnny Gargano, mamaya explain natin. Pero I thought talaga na buong episode na to ng NXT is gonna be Joe ruining everything. Pero sige, nag-face off nga si Joe at saka si Cross. And that's a really good shit. Perfect stuff. Ito, sabihin ko na medyo expected na tong return. But, hindi pa natin nakikita na clear. Hindi pa natin nakikita na clean, maliwanag kung ano yung deal ni Joe sa NXT. And hindi pa mawawala si Regal. And si Joe, for sure, as an enforcer, pwede niya magamit yung lahat ng nalalaman niya, promos, o yung stature niya, para lang mas magkaroon ng sense doon sa story nila na enforcer role. And pwede niyang pigilan kahit sino. The way si Cross, he can stop them. Or si Adam Cole, fucking baby. Yun. I wish nga na pwede rin nila gamitin to na stepping stone para makapag-compete ulit si Joe. I wish talaga na. Pero hindi pa rin siya cleared ata. And then, ayun. Also, we got a Kushida match. Para sa akin, it's one of the best matches since he won the championship on NXT. And nag-return nga si Kyle O'Reilly dito. One-on-one match and inaccept yun ni Kushida. Of course, he can. And then, of course, sobrang ganda ng debut match na to. Of course, we got Trey Baxter from, I think he's the guy from Australia, no? Sobrang laki niya ng threat sa champion ngayon, na si Kushida nga. And kahit sabihin mo na newcomer pa lang siya, at least nagpakita na siya. Ganun dapat ang debut matches. And ito naman pagkakaroon ng Kushida versus Kyle O'Reilly. Anything is possible. We can see, makikita natin isang 5-star match. Imagine that. For sure, it's gonna be a good shit. And then, ito, we got another promo from LA Knight. Ayun nga, nagkaroon nga ng promo nga dito. And then, parang ang naisip ko dito is si LA Knight, binibuild pa rin nila. Ganun pa rin nakikita ko. I don't know. They're still building up LA Knight. And I thought then, on this very segment, lalabas dito si Joe na magpapatulog ng kahit sino man. Kasi number one, si Ted DiBiase is a Hall of Fame. So of course, parang hindi mo rin mapapigilan o hindi rin mapapigilan ng iba na manuntok si Knight ng kahit sino, especially Ted DiBiase. And Joe can stop him on his tracks then as well. And it makes sense if ever. And then hanggat dumating nga si Cameron Grimes, which is makes sense at all. Sobrang siyempre kayfabe naman. Hindi talaga mawawala na ma-appreciate ni Knight dito si Ted DiBiase. Of course, siyempre heel pa rin talaga eh. Maliwanag, sobrang laking paliwanag nito. And mas malaking bagay rin to na makita natin na mas solid na yung turn ni Cameron Grimes as a fan favorite. Ayan. Pero ang sabihin natin, hindi pa to matatapos. Hindi pa matatapos tong feud. Hindi pa to matatapos tong match or whatever. And ang gusto ko naman dito, in the other hand, na kaya nila napasok dito si LA Knight is because he is one of the biggest guys outside of E. And parang ginagawa nilang book kay LA Knight ngayon is para maging isa siyang serious competitor nga. And di na ako magugulat by next year baka mag over the back of the Raw or SmackDown. And then ito, gusto kong bigyan din ng puntos. Nagkaroon ng match between Raquel Gonzalez and Dakota Kai versus Casey Catanzaro and Kaden Carter. It's a good match. Itong match na to sa NXT, one of the biggest match na kailangan niyong panoorin for sure. Sobrang laking match na to right now. And yung spots dito, good lord. I love those spots. To be honest, ito yung isa mga matches na nagustuhan ko this week. And wag kayong magulat pag pinili ko tong honorable mention sa ating match of the week. And then of course, we got the sleeping sleeping Adam Cole, baby. And then of course, nag-return din dito si Io Shirai. And then, ayun nga, okay lang sa akin na may intention pa si Shirai for the way. Ang hindi ko lang maintindihan, bakit parang parang hindi pa natin nakakita yung matinong partner dito ni Io. Pero she got it now. We got a tag team now. So, sa pagkatao syempre ni, sino nga ba ito? Ni Zoe Stark. Parang siya na yung nakikita natin na pwedeng maging tag partner dito ni Io. Maliwanag naman yun. At least, nag-stay pa rin sila sa NXT kahit papano. And, maganda pa din kahit papano na mainit yung tag team, mainit yung singles women's division. Sobrang props pa din sa kanila na maigi yun, for sure. Na nakikita natin na ganun yung way nila on doing that shit. So ito, matatawa lang ako na parang pinatakbo ni Joe. Hindi naman pinatakbo, literal. Parang pinalayas ni Joe si Gargano and Austin Theory. Parang sobrang laki ng alam mo yun, ang laki ng impact nung ginawa niya. Plus, lumabas nga si Pete Dunne and he faced off with Samoa Joe. Wow! Good matches, man. Good matches. I wish kung full-time si Joe and nag-compete siya ngayon sa NXT. For sure, it's gonna be a good thing. It's gonna be a good match for sure for me. And then, ito, main event for this week's NXT is a Tornado Tag Team match. Ciampa and Thatcher versus GYB. One of the biggest and one of the best matches this year indeed. Summary na lang to, pero I love that shit ending despite the fact na nag-overtime. Pero nakikita din natin yung chemistry ng GYB at the same time. Hindi naman ito sabihin natin na dapat nangyari sa TakeOver, but may sense na dito siya nangyari. And nag-look forward talaga ako sa isang MSK versus Ciampa and Thatcher na possible talaga mangyari in the future. I'm not saying na di siya malabo mangyari, but I promise you guys na anything is possible naman. And nakikita ko talaga na itong match na to, LA o si Thatcher, si Ciampa, at saka sila MSK, it's gonna be a good match for sure. But definitely, winning the tag titles, hindi ko pa nakikita na matatalo agad ang MSK dito. So, let's move on to our another sponsor for the podcast. Of course, we got Lazada. Sabi nga, lahat ng gusto mong bilhin nasa Lazada yan. And if you want to shop, but first, use my link, tinyurl.com/LazadaXMTGShow, and then add to cart, check out, and darating naman yun sa inyo via delivery, Lex Express delivery, and then nakatulong ka pa here in the podcast, which is really good. Sabi nga, lahat ng bagay, lahat ng kahit nasa Lazada yan. So, let's move on to our second part of the show. So, it's gonna be a short episode nga pala. Nalimutan ko. Nga pala sabihin sa inyo kasi I don't have the top questions in this week's pod. But may announce ako before we end the podcast this week. So, we got the TakeOver. Tapos na tayo sa TakeOver. And then we got the Hell in a Cell predictions. It's gonna be real quick. I'm not going to ruin some shit on SmackDown tomorrow. Friday. Today is Friday. And then Saturday is SmackDown. So, makes sense. Regardless, ito yung predictions ko for Hell in a Cell. Number 1 is Bobby Lashley defending the championship against Drew McIntyre in a last chance HIEC match for the championship. I don't think Drew will win the match, but I think Lashley needs this win, to be honest with you guys. Lashley needs the win, to be honest with you guys. Kailangan ni Lashley ng panalo since ito yata yung first niyang Hell in a Cell match, I think, in less than 10, 11, 12, 13 years. 20, sobra naman. sobra yan. Basta, I think Lashley needs to win this thing. Paliwanag yun. And then we got for the SmackDown Women's Championship. It's Bayley versus the champion, Bianca Belair. No doubt, Bianca. And then we have Rhea Ripley versus Charlotte Flair for the Raw Women's Championship. I don't think Charlotte will win. But ever Charlotte will win this thing, it doesn't make sense to me. I don't know. But either way, kahit sino manalo, it's good to me. But it must be Rhea. Rhea talaga. And then we got the fourth match. It's Alexa Bliss versus Shayna Baszler for nothing. For nothing. Obviously, I think it's either no contest or Alexa will win the match. Ang weird sabihin, pero ganun yung nakikita ko, Alexa will win. And then finally, we got the Tribal Chief, the Universal Champion, the head of the table, and the Universal Champion Roman Reigns defending the championship against Rey Mysterio in a Hell in a Cell match for the Universal Championship. I think wala pa rin talaga makakatalo kay Roman. Kahit sino pa yan. Roman Reigns. Easy. Easy lang naman eh. Walang logic dito. Kahit grade 1, mahuhulaan naman nanalo si Roman dito. I swear. Kahit manghula tayo ng ABC, wala. Roman pa rin yan. Ito. So, tapos na tayo sa first proper ng show. It's time for me to announce the second important thing na gusto kong gawin during the Money in the Bank weekend. So we're going to have 3-4 episodes featuring this part of this podcast. So, ito. We're going to do the same thing that we did at WrestleMania, but this time, kailangan ko ng tulong nyo. Kung ano ba yung gusto nyong i-review kong Money in the Bank, pay-per-view, or match. It's gonna be a match. Kailangan Money in the Bank match lang to. I'm not going to review the whole pay-per-view, but instead, Money in the Bank ladder matches. 2006 until 2005 until 2019. I'm not going to include the 2020 because nabigyan ko na siya ng review and I think hindi ko na siya gustong bigyan ng re-review. Hindi ko na siya gustong bigyan ng ganon. So, guys, check nyo na lang yung podcast group natin or sa Discord for more details about the plans, about this 3-week or 4-week plan, about the possible outcome of this BS. Basta abangan nyo na lang. May announcement ako din sa page, sa podcast page. And yung suggestions nyo, syempre, tatanggapin ko yung mga suggestions nyo sa pay-per-view matches na bibigyan natin ng review or pay-per-view ng Money in the Bank. Yeah. So, real quick lang, we're going to recap our weekly stuff here. So, we got the Superstar of the Week. We got the Tribal Chief Roman Reigns because I love how he almost killed both Mysterios. Not really killed, but he killed both of them. He minurder niya yung dalawang walang niya eh. Minurder niya yung dalawang walang hiya. And it sounds make sense to me. And yeah, you know what I mean. And then we got the Woman of the Week. It's Meiko Satomura, obviously. Congratulations for her win of the championship. And it makes sense na siya yung nanalo doon sa match versus Kaylee Ray since mahaba na rin yung run niya as champion. But still, I'm going to props to Kaylee Ray kasi sobrang solid din yung run niya kahit papano. And I hope Meiko can give us a better run than Kaylee Ray did. And then we got the match of the week, of course, the 5-way match, no doubt about it. Just watch that shit from TakeOver. And no doubt, hindi niyo mare-regret. Also, I need to mention some matches. I think the Moose versus Kenny Omega is a must watch as well. And then the NXT UK Women's Championship match is a must watch as well on this week's review of our matches of the week. And then, yun lang nga sa akin. I think it's time to finish the show this week. One of the shortest episodes, but one of the biggest podcast episodes this week. So if you're listening to the podcast via Facebook, say may podcast na rin sa Facebook in the future. And then if you're listening to Spotify, Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, Anchor, the podcast app, Deezer, and other podcast platforms, thank you very much for listening on this podcast, on this very podcast. And I hope you guys can follow the podcast on all of the social media platforms, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and Twitch at the MTG Show Podcast. Also, you can follow our network, Pipe Network, on all of the social media. Of course, FB, Twitter, IG, Twitch, TikTok. That's Pipe Network. And visit our website, pipenetwork.co, for more shows on the Pipe Network. And like those shows, kagaya nga ng The Bizarra Tales, Mad in Manila, Puntahan Nights, The Rajib Show, and more, especially this MTG Show podcast is a proud member of Pipe Network, the Pilipinas Indie Podcast and Entertainment Network, aka Pipe Network. Basta Pipe yan. Ayan, so, and then follow the podcast on all of the social media nga. Of course, Facebook, Twitter, IG, TikTok, and Twitch. And then follow me on my social media platforms at AG Penera. Yun lang sa akin. So, thank you for listening on this podcast. One of the shortest episodes on the show. But, yeah. See you on the next one. Stay safe. Stay raso. Register to vote. Hindi na madali. Hindi na mahirap mag-register. So, I hope everyone can download the Comelec app, the registration app. Mag-register na kayo. Register to vote. And I hope we can kick those fuckers out of this shit. And say no to patience. That's it. Thank you. See you on the next pod. Basta podcast, type yun.